Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle. I've got a really exciting album spotlight for you guys. I'm kind of rebranding the show a little bit. Nothing major, but I'm calling it Album Spotlight from now on to kind of give it a brand. Every Tuesday, I plan to do album spotlights. And it may be a new album, it may be a reissue of an older album, it may just be me talking and reviewing a classic album from like back in the 70s. It could be anything, but it'll be me talking about an album or group of albums. Also, the new music shuffle that I do is in this album spotlight, where I spotlight a couple different albums that have been exciting me in the world of music. So just kind of wanted to give that at the front here as I'm trying to rebrand this and have separate shows for each of these different categories. So Tuesdays are these album spotlights, Fridays are New Music Friday, and then Sundays are with Jana for Jana Reacts. So that's this normal schedule, and everything beyond that will be, there'll be a little bonus episodes sprinkled in, but that's kind of the structure of the channel. So this is an album spotlight, and I'm spotlighting a good one. This is a classic album, a classic prog album, but this is the remakes of it, the redo. This is the remixed version from Steven Wilson, and this is Gentle Giant's Free Hand. I've been really excited to talk about this one. I did a whole ranking show about the Gentle Giant albums, so I talked quite a bit about Gentle Giant there, and even about Freehand, so I probably won't go on very long in this video, but I wanted to showcase the cool new packaging, cool new features of the music, and so forth. And so that's really what I wanted to highlight and focus on, rather than going through a whole biography or history of the band and the album. But just as a short one, Gentle Giant are of course a very notable British progressive rock band from the 70s. They were active really all during the 70s, from 1970 to 1980. They produced a great group of albums throughout that span, of which I talked about quite a bit in my show of ranking their albums. And right in the middle of that period, to me, is their classic era that starts with Octopus, continues on with In a Glass House and Power and the Glory, and kind of culminates to me with this album, Freehand. Kind of an expert run of albums to me that is almost unmatched with any other band, except, some of the classic artists have also similar runs like that, like Genesis with their run from like Nursery Crime to Lamb Lies Down, and of course Yes with their run from like the Yes album to Relayer. These are fantastic seminal periods of these bands and them producing just massive, great prog album after prog album. But I feel like this should be in that same conversation, this run of albums, maybe even from Three Friends to Freehand or even Interview, just this classic period of the band where they were just on fire. And this is one of the strongest albums from that period. I think the band especially really is high on this album and thinks it's one of their best. So this came out right in the smack dab of middle of their career, basically in 1975. And it's, of course, inspired, like all their albums, with almost a classical Renaissance type vibe, medieval quality to the music, but also this kind of funky jazz rock influence as well, and molded in this interesting, really cool way. They put in a lot of mixtures and styles into their music, and it almost makes it hard to kind of pin down what these songs sound like, to really describe the songs that are on display. I've tried, like, how do you describe this, because there's so many different things coming together in this kind of mishmash, but it all works. It's like this complex, they take all these disparate elements that you wouldn't think would work and somehow concoct it into this complex arrangement that somehow works and sounds really incredible, blending folk, soul, jazz, classical, medieval, baroque, chamber music, all of that stuff into this melting pot, and it produces something really eclectic but beautiful and really well crafted. And Freehand is just such a strong album from their career. I strongly recommend it. And of course, the Steven Wilson remakes, as all things he does, is incredible. I've really been kind of fascinated with Steven Wilson's remixes lately. I love Steven Wilson as an artist just by himself, but I really appreciate his ear for production and redoing these albums and making them sound fresh, and just the sonic quality is just so excellent. I really want to go out and get every single album that he's put his hand on, all the Jethro Tull albums he's worked on. He's worked on several Gentle Giant albums now, and he's just going through different catalogs and different albums that I think he really appreciates. And that's what's cool about it, is he loves these albums himself, so he's coming in as a huge music fan and lover, giving care and attention to these classic albums. So it's really cool. And so I'm really glad I picked this up. And I actually picked it up in multiple formats because I just was so excited to hear it in all its different varieties. And so I've got the Blu-ray/CD here because I really wanted to hear the 5.1 makes or the Dolby Atmos makes on the Blu-ray, which I've listened to and is fantastic. And then, of course, I got the vinyl packaging as well because I wanted to have the album. I didn't have this one yet on vinyl, so I thought that would be cool to add to my collection. This is an excellent packaging as well. Just the classic artwork, essentially, and then it's, of course, a gatefold with the excellent inside with the lyrics and this kind of cool thing here as well. Some cool artwork, all the different hands and stuff on the other side. And then the album itself, I actually got the translucent red, I believe, variant of it. So I wanted to showcase that as well. Really cool. I think that fits the album really well. Just a really cool package altogether. Just wanted to show that off really quickly. And what's cool about the vinyl is that it has 2 vinyl LPs because it has the original makes essentially on one of the LPs and then on the other the Steven Wilson remake. So it kind of gives you both flavors of the sound of the album. So kind of cool to compare and contrast almost and kind of to give that impression. But I focused a lot when listening on the 5.1/ the Dolby Atmos is what I listened to because I have kind of a new relatively new setup to be able to listen to that in my home theater and so forth. So I was interested to see how that would sound, and it sounds incredible. I was really blown away by it. It's cool to hear these classic albums in a new form, to put them on and be able to hear this kind of separation in the music, to hear things coming from different directions, essentially, and having the music kind of engulf you, having it come from all directions. It just brings new life into these classic albums. I've heard Freehand probably 100 times by now throughout listening to these various albums just throughout my time as a fan of Gentle Giant. And so to hear it in a new way is just really exciting as a music appreciator. So I really loved being able to hear this in a new way. It brought new life to an album that I've loved all these years. And it's apparent, especially, it's kind of a no-brainer that this would be a cool feature in that kind of surround sound is the on reflection, just hearing those voices come from different speakers just around you and having the voices kind of surround you in that way is a really cool feature. Okay, here's the sound coming from this speaker, and then the next voice adds onto it in this speaker, and then comes from behind you in this speaker, and then behind you here, and it just kind of builds in that way. It's kind of, I would imagine this is the effect that they were going for. It kind of adds to the vocal round effect that they are achieving on this track especially. But all throughout, it's just the music surrounds you. I think Steven Wilson did an excellent job of putting the music where it belongs and making it sound, it's not too gimmicky. Because sometimes I worry, especially with Dolby Atmos, that it's kind of a gimmick to have music come from all angles and it's, it's fun, but is it really, the integrity of the album as it was meant to be heard? But I think Steven Wilson does it in a very respectful manner where it brings life and new dimension to the music, but doesn't take away from what it is at its core. So that to me is the stroke of genius that he puts into these projects. And I loved listening to all these tracks. They were just so exciting. And it's really a strong album. I used to always think that the first half was the strong half of the album and the second half was a bit weaker. But the second half has some killer stuff on it. His Last Voyage is one that really spoke to me on this new Dolby Atmos mix. It really sounded fantastic. The sound of it and the vocals and how they were mixed. I really appreciated that track. I think it's an underrated gem in their catalog. Just this kind of beautiful arrangement, complex but also beautiful and sweet in a sense, kind of this almost nostalgic quality to it. But I really think it's really well made and really well crafted, and breaks up a lot of these like more rockier tracks. So I think it works to its advantage. Just the same with the finger snaps, you know, coming from all directions. Freehand has just always been my favorite, one of my favorite Gentle Giant tracks, and just sounds excellent. The complexity of all the things going on in the mix. I love the middle section where it kind of goes off in these, you know, different vibes, and then it comes back in with the main section. Just really, it hits it hard, and that just the way they come back into that rocking section is just fantastic and really always blows me away whenever I listen. Time to Kill is such a cool little rocker, you know, one that I, you know, has never stood out to me in a huge way, but here it sounded really good, and it just has that really cool style to it. I just, there's, you know, almost a cool rock, almost funky vibe to a lot of these tracks. And then Mobile kind of closes it out. Probably the weakest track on the album still for me, but some great, you know, violin, fiddle work on the track that kind of elevates it in a sense. So just, it's really cool to hear this band and what they're attempting. And I think this band especially was kind of made for this stereo 5.1 surround sound mix. You know, they really come to life because there's so much different things going on in the music. There's so much different instruments and variation and things that work well to kind of separate out and to listen for. You know, there's so many different, just looking at the personnel listing and on all the different instruments that are on here, the recorders, the saxophone, the electric piano, Hammond, clavinet, mini Moog, synthesizer, you know, the violin, electric violin, you know, all that stuff. There's just so much going on in the mix, and it's cool to hear it in more detail and more clarity as these mixes tend to do. So I'm really a big fan of this. If you love this album, if you love Gentle Giant, or if you just love Steven Wilson's work as a producer and him kind of bringing these new looks at these classic albums through these new mixes, I think this is a strong contender for some of his strongest work. And it's one of the best Gentle Giant albums, and it sounds fantastic. So I strongly recommend this. I hope all of you big progressive rock fans probably already have it or have already heard it in some form if you're interested in this kind of thing. But if you haven't, please pick it up and check this out. It's really fantastic. And I just had a blast listening to this. I just sat in my living room and just let it wash over me in that Dolby Atmos mix, and it was just so much fun. So if you really are looking for a fun time as a prog listener and a new way to listen to these classic albums, that's a great way to do it. So thank you all for watching. I hope you liked this album spotlight, and I hope to do more. And so please subscribe if you want to hear all about my takes on these different albums as they come out and as they're reissued, or just on some classic albums that I plan to cover in the future. So please subscribe, please like the video. And thank you all for your support and for any comments. And please comment if of any other Steven Wilson remixes. You know, that's what I'm really excited about. Which ones do you think really stand out of the ones he's done? Would be really cool for me to see, because I'm trying to collect some of those if they're available. So thank you guys so much again. And as always, please keep enjoying the music. Thank you.